Have you ever stared at a dead brown houseplant and wondered why it died, even though you watered it perfectly? What if I told you that you were doing absolutely everything right, but your plant was secretly poisoned from the very first day? Welcome to the channel. Today, we are uncovering a massive secret straight from a 20-year plant store veteran. We are talking about the hidden difference between seed starting mix and regular potting soil. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at a bag of dirt the same way again. Here is the crazy paradox. The softest, most expensive-looking dirt at the store is actually the #1 killer of indoor plants. There is a hidden truth in the gardening industry that nobody talks about, and it is costing you hundreds of dollars in dead greenery. Do you think you are currently using the right soil? Drop a comment below right now with the brand of dirt you use, and let us see if you are accidentally harming your plants. Let us get into the real story. For decades, the gardening industry has treated soil like a one-size-fits-all magic trick. 50 years ago, people just dug up dirt from their backyard, threw it in a pot, and hoped for the best. But as indoor gardening exploded in popularity, companies started engineering dirt in massive factories. They created two totally different products for two totally different stages of a plant life. One is a super light mix made exclusively to help baby seeds sprout. The other is a heavy, rich soil designed to keep adult plants alive for years. But here's the problem. They put them in almost identical plastic bags. They use the same beautiful pictures of green leaves on the packaging. They put them on the exact same shelf at your local hardware store. The big companies never bothered to educate the average consumer on the massive difference between the two. So, for the last 20 years, regular people have been playing a blind game of Russian roulette every time they buy a bag of dirt. This historical lack of information created the modern myth of the black thumb. People blame themselves, but the confusion was baked into the market from the very beginning. So let us start by looking at the first bag of dirt you usually grab at the store. You see a bag labeled as seed starting mix. It looks incredibly soft. It feels completely weightless. You might think this is the absolute best luxury material for your beautiful indoor plants. But this is exactly where the disaster begins. Seed starting mix is engineered for one very specific purpose. It is made to take a tiny, fragile seed and help it sprout into a baby plant. To do this, the soil must hold onto a massive amount of moisture. It needs to stay constantly damp so the hard shell of the seed can break open. Think of it like a highly specialized baby formula. It is perfect for a newborn infant. But would you feed only baby formula to a fully grown adult and expect them to thrive? Of course not. An adult needs solid food, complex nutrients, and completely different care. When you put a mature houseplant into pure seed starting mix, you are basically trapping it in a nursery environment. The plant gets confused. The roots do not know what to do. The moisture levels are completely wrong for its current stage of life. This is the exact moment your plant starts counting down its final days. And the worst part is that you have absolutely no idea you just sealed its fate. You walk away thinking you did a great job, but the soil is already plotting against your favorite green friend. Now you might be wondering what actually happens under the surface when you use this baby plant soil for a grown-up plant. Let us talk about the silent killer known as root rot. Because seed starting mix is designed to hold water like a greedy sponge, it almost never dries out inside a typical living room. You water your plant on Sunday. By next Sunday, the top looks dry, so you water it again. But deep down at the bottom of the pot, that soil is still soaking wet. It is like wearing wet socks inside winter boots for a whole week. Your feet would become a terrible wrinkled mess. That is exactly what happens to the roots of your plant. They sit in a puddle of old, stagnant water. The roots literally begin to suffocate because they cannot get any oxygen. Then the bacteria moves in. The roots turn brown, then black, and finally they melt into a smelly mush. The irony is that the top of your plant might actually look thirsty. The leaves might get crispy or droop down. So what do? You panic and give it even more water. You are actively drowning a plant that is already begging for air. This is the number one reason why people think they have a black thumb. You are not a bad plant parent. You just fell into the moisture trap of using the wrong dirt. Let us completely destroy a very common myth right now. A lot of people believe that the lighter and fluffier the soil feels in the bag, the better it must be for the roots. It makes sense in our human brains, right? We like soft pillows and fluffy blankets. But your plants absolutely hate this. Over time, that ultra-light seed starting mix begins to break down. Every time you water it, the tiny particles get pushed closer and closer together. The fluffiness completely disappears. Within just a few months, that soft dirt turns into a rock-hard brick inside your pot. It shrinks away from the edges of the container. When you try to water it, the water just runs down the sides and straight out the bottom hole. The roots get absolutely nothing. Imagine trying to build a solid brick house on top of a foundation made of cotton candy. At first, it looks soft and sweet. But the moment it rains, the whole structure collapses into a sticky disaster. Your mature plants need physical support. They need heavy elements to hold them upright as they grow taller and sprout new leaves. When the fluffy soil collapses, the roots are crushed. They can no longer stretch out to find the nutrients they desperately need. This is why a plant that looked great for the first 2 months suddenly stops growing and looks incredibly sad. So what is the actual solution to this massive problem? Enter the hero of our story, the general potting mix, or what professional growers call cultured soil. This is the mature adult version of dirt. When you open a bag of high-quality potting mix, it looks completely different. You will see chunks of tree bark. You will see little white rocks called perlite. You will probably find bits of real compost. It might even feel a little bit rough and heavy in your hands. This rough texture is exactly what your adult plants are craving. Think of this soil as a perfectly balanced, nutritious dinner. It has the meat, the vegetables, and the healthy grains. The chunks of bark and the white rocks create tiny air pockets throughout the entire pot. These little caves of oxygen are the secret to massive, healthy root systems. When water flows through cultured soil, it gives the plant a quick drink and then immediately drains away. It does not hang around and cause trouble. The roots can easily breathe between waterings. They can stretch their legs, grab onto the solid pieces of bark, and anchor the plant firmly into the ground. If you want a plant that lives for 10 years instead of 10 weeks, this is the environment you must create. You have to upgrade them to the adult menu. Let us dive a little deeper into this concept of drainage and breathing, because it is the ultimate game changer for your indoor garden. Have you ever tried to hold your breath underwater for more than a minute? Your chest starts to burn. Panic sets in, and you desperately need to reach the surface for a gasp of fresh air. Your plant roots experience that exact same panic when they are buried in the wrong soil. Cultured soil prevents this underwater nightmare. The rough materials in the potting mix act like tiny little breathing tubes for the root system. When you pour water over the top, you should actually hear a soft, crackling sound. You should see the water disappear into the dirt almost instantly. If the water sits on top of the soil for more than 5 seconds, you have a serious drainage problem. A good potting mix allows the water to pull fresh oxygen down into the pot as it drains out the bottom. It is literally breathing for the plant. This constant exchange of water and air is what triggers the roots to grow thick and strong. It tells the plant that it is in a safe, healthy environment. When the roots are happy, they send a chemical signal up to the leaves. That is when you finally see those beautiful, shiny new leaves unfurling on your favorite indoor plants. Now we must talk about the timeline of food and nutrition. This is another massive difference that nobody warns you about at the garden center. Seed starting mix has almost zero nutritional value. It is virtually completely empty. Why? Because a tiny seed already contains all the food it needs to sprout its very first leaves. The soil just provides the wet blanket to wake it up. But once that baby plant grows up, it needs a serious food supply. If you leave a grown plant in seed starting mix, it will starve to death right in front of your eyes. It is like sending someone on a hiking trip across the country with only one tiny candy bar in their pocket. They might survive the first day, but they will not make it very far. Cultured potting soil, on the other hand, comes preloaded with a buffet of nutrients. The compost and organic matter slowly break down over time. They release a steady stream of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium right into the root zone. This food supply can easily last for 6 whole months without you having to add a single drop of extra liquid fertilizer. Your plant gets a tiny, perfect meal every single time you water it. If your leaves are turning yellow and falling off, you're not necessarily watering it wrong. You might just be starving your plant because of the soil. Let us paint a picture of the classic repotting trap that catches almost every single plant owner at least once. You go to a fancy plant shop. You spend $50 on a gorgeous, lush green masterpiece. You bring it home, and you want to give it a bigger, beautiful ceramic pot. You run to the local hardware store and grab the cheapest, lightest bag of dirt you can find, which is usually the seed starting mix. You carefully take the plant out of its original nursery pot, knock away the old dirt, and pack it tightly into the new fluffy soil. You water it, take a picture for your social media, and feel very proud of yourself. But you just committed a crime against nature. You just moved your beautiful plant from a luxury mansion with an open kitchen into a damp, dark cardboard box. Over the next 4 weeks, the tragedy slowly unfolds. The lower leaves start to turn yellow. The stems get mushy. You notice tiny little black flies flying around the wet dirt. You try moving it closer to the window. You try wiping the leaves, but the damage is happening underground where you cannot see it. This repotting trap is the main reason why people say plants always die as soon as they bring them home. The store did not sell you a bad plant. You just shocked its system with the wrong foundation. So, how do you actually protect yourself and your plants when you are standing in the gardening aisle? You have to become a dirt detective. Do not just look at the pretty pictures of flowers on the front of the bag. The marketing departments design those bags specifically to trick you into buying them. You must flip that heavy bag over and read the fine print on the back. You are looking for a list of ingredients. If the first words you see are strictly peat moss or cocoa coir, and there is no mention of compost or bark, put the bag straight back on the shelf. That is baby plant soil. What you want to find is a list that includes aged forest products, composted bark, perlite, and maybe even a little bit of sand or pumice. It might also mention that it feeds plants for up to 6 months. That is your golden ticket. That is the cultured soil your adult plants are begging for. Sometimes the bag will simply be labeled as indoor potting mix. But even then, you must verify the ingredients. Trust no one but the ingredient list. By taking exactly 30 extra seconds to read the back of the bag, you will save hundreds of dollars in dead plants and completely eliminate the frustration of indoor gardening. It is the cheapest insurance policy you can buy. Now, you might be asking a very smart question. Can you ever mix these two types of soil together? The answer from the 20-year expert is absolutely yes, but there are extremely strict rules you must follow. You are basically playing a game of chemistry. If you have a bag of heavy cultured soil and you are planting something that loves extra moisture, like a fern or a tropical plant, you can actually add a small amount of the light seed starting mix into it. But the ratio is everything. You should never use more than 20% of the seed starting mix in your final blend. Think of the heavy potting soil as your flour and the light seed starting mix as the sugar. If you are baking a cake and you use equal parts flour and sugar, the cake is going to completely melt and burn in the oven. But if you add just a little bit of sugar, it makes the cake absolutely perfect. By mixing in just a couple of handfuls of the lighter dirt, you increase the moisture retention just enough to keep the tropical plants happy, without suffocating the roots. You become a master blender. You stop relying on the factories to decide what your plants need, and you start giving them exactly what they want based on the specific type of plant you are growing. But what if you are listening to this right now and realizing you already made the ultimate mistake? You just repotted all of your favorite plants into the wrong soil last weekend. Do not panic, but you must act quickly. We are going to perform emergency room surgery on your green friends. First, wait for the soil to dry out just a little bit so it is not a muddy mess. Gently pull the plant out of its pot. You're going to see that the light soil is probably clinging to the roots like a wet towel. Use your fingers to very carefully massage the root ball and shake loose as much of that bad dirt as you possibly can. Do not rip the roots, just loosen the soil. Then you're going to repot it using the correct chunky cultured potting mix we have been talking about. Settle the new dirt around the roots and give it a very gentle watering to remove any large air pockets. Your plant might look a little bit stressed for about a week. The leaves might droop a little as it recovers from the surgery, but I promise you, deep down, the roots will be breathing a massive sigh of relief. Within 2 weeks, you will see a sudden burst of new energy. You have literally pulled your plant back from the brink of death simply by changing the ground beneath its feet. Here is the absolute turning point you must remember. The dirt you buy is not just a place to hold the plant up. It is the lungs, the stomach, and the immune system of your entire indoor garden. The biggest plot twist is that the beautiful, fluffy, soft soil you thought was a luxury treatment was actually suffocating your plants to death. Meanwhile, the ugly, chunky, rough dirt with pieces of bark and rocks is the true holy grail for long-lasting growth. By simply switching from a seed-starting mix to a cultured adult potting soil, you completely change the destiny of your plants. You stop drowning them, you start feeding them properly, and you finally give their roots the oxygen they desperately need. It is a simple switch, but the consequences are life-changing for your green friends. Thank you so much for watching and learning the truth today. If this video saved one of your plants, you have to hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a like to help the algorithm spread this warning, and leave a comment below. Here's my question for you. Which of your plants are you going to run and check right now to see if they are trapped in the wrong soil? Tell me the name of the plant in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.